back, everybody. As promised, the next thing we're going to talk about is prototyping, and this will be a basic walkthrough, and it's going to be very hard for me to make it basic because there's a lot of fun stuff to do with prototypes. But I'm going to save some of the meat for when we have a nice, legit layout built, not this ugly thing we're looking at right now. Um, to get set up, or well, first, just to, unless, like, in case you didn't watch the first video, uh, prototyping is a way to share um, a proof of concept with stakeholders. That's one way to look at it. Um, Basically, you can walk through your application, or I mean, it could just be a you can make this into a slideshow if you want to, but most people don't use Figma design files for that. They use the slides. Um, but just as a refresher, with nothing selected, just click out here somewhere. Click on the prototype tab just to remind you these are the only settings we had. And I had mentioned in that first video that once we select something, we will get some more settings here. So with this prototype tab open, click on the home page. Now we can see some other options here. We're not going to do anything with them yet, but I will walk through them. Flow starting point. This is, I think I can probably explain flows better once we have one made. Um, but let's just say there's you can make different paths or different, I'll just say prototypes with the same file. So each prototype starts with a flow starting point. And then you have interactions. That's interactions with this particular element. So right now, we would be adding interactions with the parent quote artboard frame. Scroll behavior. This is I brought this up I think in the first video um, when we talked about clipping. We've got clip, the checkbox for clip on an item. If we had any content within a frame that is clipped, that if the content overflows, let's say, is taller than the containing frame, then in the prototype, you'd be able to use a scroll wheel or whatever to scroll that content, just like you would like on a website or an app. And these settings should make sense, especially to developers. And this, I don't think I've ever checked this box. It might just be yeah, that just takes you back to if you were selecting nothing, like the whole page here. Okay, so before we get into it, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. And one thing I haven't noticed or noted is when I say I'm going to zoom out, I'm doing so. Sometimes I'm using a trackpad, sometimes I'm using a mouse, but I'm holding down Command and scroll wheel, or if you're using like a magic mouse or a trackpad, the scroll gesture. So that's what's happening here when I'm zooming in and out. You can also do Command plus or minus. That will zoom out of only the content area. But just wanted to point that out. So let's zoom out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead. Let's do some cleanup here. We need to switch back to design mode. We had done a real mess here of describing when we were giving examples of variants of components. I want to undo some of that. So let's click on the home. Let's remove the icon. Click on services, remove icon, and make it default style. And remove icon about us. So there. It's ugly, but makes more sense. So we've got home page button here set to the active state because we're on the home page here. So let's go ahead and select the home page parent frame. And we're going to do Command D. And more times than not, this should just set it nicely next to the frame. So you see that's what happened when we did Command D. Let's go ahead and change this to website services. And we will click on the services, change that state to active to indicate that we're on the services page. Click on the home and set that to default. Okay. We will stop here to start working on our prototype. But you can probably see where we're going to go with this. We're going to make two more of these. I'm going to duplicate it 2 more times. Let's go ahead and click on prototype mode or tab, and let's click on home page. In this prototype, we're going to say that the home page is the starting point. That would make sense, right? So let's go ahead and hit plus, and we will just call this website. Okay, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to make some separation of concerns here. We'll move our components up and kind of out of the way. Normally, and probably later in this series, we'll actually move components to its own page. But for now, we'll keep it within our sites here. Okay, so this when you're in prototype mode, you'll see this tag, for lack of better words, that indicates this is the starting point of the website flow. So if we click back on this, you'll see that is indicated here. Now let's zoom in, and we have a services page now. So what we can do is we can click on the services item, and you'll see now that we're in prototype mode, you'll see this plus sign show up. This doesn't, that I know of, doesn't matter which one of these pluses we click on. It's more of a what makes sense. Like as far as I'm aware, the choice of where to click and drag really is just what's the closest to the thing you're going to. But maybe I'm wrong on that. So let's click and drag over to here, and we'll just make sure that you see the website dash services term blue. That means we're saying we want this to navigate, or we want this to connect with this frame. And when we do that, we will get this dialog. So let's go over what's in this dialog. So we're saying the trigger is when we click on it, do this action, which navigate to is what we want. And then what we're navigating to is this, the thing that we dragged on. If for any reason we wanted to change that, or maybe we dragged it and we hit the wrong element, you should be able to click here and choose one of the frames that's at that level, that let's say root level of the page, and whatever one is not currently selected, you should be able to, like, we could change this to navigate to the components frame. We don't want to do that, but then you have an animation setting, instant, dissolve, smart animate. I don't actually know what that means, to be honest. Pushing, pulling, moving, sliding, all those options you may or may not be familiar with, but we're going to keep this at instant for now. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what state does. Reset scroll. Oh, honestly, I didn't actually know this exists. It's kind of cool. So maybe we'll go back to this. Yeah, I'm curious about that later. Let's see. We didn't look at the different triggers. So on click, on drag, while hovering, while press, game keypad. I've never actually noticed that there. Mouse, enter, mouse, leave. So you've got a lot here. And honestly, I've really only utilized on click in my professional life. So this is actually kind of cool that I opened this dial or this drop down finally. So we'll play with these later on when we dive deeper and do some cooler stuff. Okay, so this is set to do exactly what I'm expecting. So let's go ahead and close this. Now what we want to do is we want to run this prototype. So we're basically we're gonna go into prototype view, and be able to interact. A couple different ways we can do that. We can hit this play button up here. we should be able to hit this play button over here on this tag. Let's go ahead and do that. This is going to open up another frame, or sorry, window. Normally I have it, it'll open up in a tab. Um, but I'm not on my work machine. I don't do as much work on this computer. So it's not set the way I would, I think, if I click this. Yeah, so they call that presentation view. So let's do it over here instead. Okay, so here is our prototype. We know because we did it just now that this services component is clickable. You can interact with it. If we didn't know that, Figma has a nice tool that, or a feature that if you kind of click off of the screen or like basically on anything that's not clickable, it will highlight anything that has an interaction. And this is good for when you hand this off to stakeholders. If maybe they don't, I mean, like hopefully your design is intuitive enough, for them to follow along and know. But this is a good way for them to know that if I click off, I can see what I can interact with. So we click on services, boom. Now we're on the services frame. Now what we can't do is click home. We can't go back. So that's not great. So let's address that. We could close this, um, but we don't necessarily have to. We can go back over here to our main or to our design file. Let's go ahead and address that. So you can see that the services links to website. We don't need to necessarily have services go back to itself, so we can leave that as it is on this frame. But let's click on home and let's go ahead and just make that connection back to home. And I believe this defaults to whatever the last thing you did was. So we should be safe to just hit close. And more often than not, I think, depending on your internet connection, if you're on a really flaky one, like at a coffee shop, this may not be true, but more often than not, when you click back over here, the changes should reflect. So like if I click off, you see now home is a button. So now we can easily navigate back and forth. So that's cool. We want to connect, well, we want to make these other pages and we want to connect them. But before we do that, let's go back to design view. You may or may not have thought of this already, but we're going to run into not necessarily a snag, but something that is kind of inefficient. And that is each page we make, we're going to have to update the each individual button that is clickable. So that's not a huge deal because right now we've got 4 pages, but it's possible we could make this or we could go about this in a smarter way. All right, so in the last video where we dove into components, I had made a mention that I classify components as in 2 buckets. A component that directly relates to a component within the app, like something that's going to be programmed, and then a utility component. That's my terminology. I don't know if it's used in the field, but that's how I look at it. And this could actually be one or the other, or both. I mean, but for now, we're going to classify those as a utility component because it's going to help us be a little more efficient when we make more pages. So let's zoom out a little bit. Let's go ahead and let's select each one of these buttons on the home page. So click the home, we'll shift click, shift click, shift click. We've got all 4 of those selected. We're going to do the shortcut to put these into a frame. We're going to frame this selection, and that is Option Command G, and you'll see now they are within a frame. And while we're here, go ahead and turn on auto layout, just so they are with the set to hug. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's double click in there. We'll get this new frame we made selected, and let's name it. Call this main navigation. Let's go ahead and let's make another frame up here next to our components. You can do the F key, just click and drag. We're going to name this utilities. And let's double click again. Let's convert this to a component. So Option Command K. So now that is the main navigation component. Before we click and drag this into utilities, one thing we can do if you have a main component selected and you duplicate it, at least the last time I did this, it will create an instance. It will not actually create another component. So this can be handy because we still want to have an instance of this component in this header. So Command D. Okay, that was correct. You can see this is an instance by it being a hollow diamond. So now we can go back, click on our main one, and let's just drag it into our utilities frame here. Let's go back to prototype view. Okay. You can see that it kept that binding of the services button going to the services page. We don't have any binding for home because we made that on this other non-component over here. So we want to make sure we have an instance of our new utility component in the nav or in the header here. But if we select on homepage, yeah, you'll see that is represented here also. So let's see. Let's click out of design view. There are a few things that you can do. I do believe you can delete in prototype view, but more often than not, if you need to do anything having to do with the design, you want to switch back to design view. So let's double click. Oh, that's right. These aren't even framed. So we'll select each button, holding shift, and we'll just hit delete. And we can go over to there's a couple different things we could do. We can come over here, select this instance. Oops. We could hit Command D and we could just drag it over to the right. That would probably be the quickest way. Or we can go over to assets and we'll see that we now have our main navigation. So we could click and drag. And let's select out of there. Let's hit prototype view again. Let's select this. Okay, so you can see services just goes to itself now. So now that we have that utility component added here, go back to design view, click on the services frame. Let's do Command D and then do it one more time. So now we have 3. Let's go in and fix this name to About Us. And fix this one to Contact. Okay. So we're getting closer here. One thing we'll see right away is that the state of the home button is bold or active on the services page. So we will want to address that. But we're going to do that later. That's going to be a little deeper dive. And there's a few different ways you can do it. I'm just going to show you one way. But let's fix the routing of this navigation by clicking back to prototype view. And on our main component, double click in and get that home button. I will say this is a little hard to see because of how zoomed out we are and also how big I have my interface zoomed in. But I'm doing that again to make sure you guys can really see the interface. But because I'm on like a 4K monitor, otherwise everything would be tiny. But anyway, so click and drag on homepage. Okay. Now we can click on About Us. I did not hit it. I hit the other. Let's on File. This is one of those cases where it might be easier to utilize the layers panel. So button, About Us. Let's click and drag to About Us. Go over here. Click and drag to Contact. And for now, let's go ahead, because we don't have this active state wired up yet, let's just put some placeholder text in the content area. So let's switch back to design view, have our content area selected, and type, hit the T key and just click in there and do home page. And I believe in the first video, we set up a text style. Let's zoom in for a heading one. So with this selected, we go to typography and we click the library here for apply styles. We do H1. Oh, that's ridiculously large. We fix the size of that. Let's actually, it may not be ridiculously large. These frames are ridiculously small. I'm having a crisis thinking about how to best address this without rabbit holing. Ideally, I would like to make this a more realistic size. Okay, so in a perfect world, and when we get into our actual app that we're going to make, um, we would actually go in and make these main frames here, these website pages, a more realistic size, 660 by 440. That's like a CRT monitor from the 90s. For this purpose, we'll just make the H1 smaller. Okay, that was a rabbit hole again. Let's go in here and we're going to copy this text element, and let's click over here on the next one, hit paste. Do it again on About Us, paste, and do it on Contact. And while we're in here, let's go ahead and double click Contact. This is a chance to point out another cool feature in Figma. They have done some really good work thinking about ways to make things like getting around and doing tasks really more efficient and smart. Because one of the things that does suck about Figma is you have all these layers that are within layers and within layers, and clicking into them can be a real pain sometime. I mean, you're gonna like double click like 30 times to drill down into the thing you really want. Um, Figma knows that we have this text item over here selected in this frame, and over here there is a similar item. If we hover over anything else, well, actually, okay, so it just knows we have text selected. I've never actually thought, like dug into how they do this, but so this is good for me to figure out. But so basically, any text item on this frame, it's allowing us to just easily click once and select. And that's a really neat thing to know about Figma, because it can make you get around a lot quicker versus us like clicking outside, then coming in here, double clicking, and then double clicking again. You know, that's a whole lot of extra steps and places for failure. You can accidentally move something, nudge it, on unintentionally, whatever. But again, just keep that in mind. So About Us, and I'm gonna slide over. And again, I'm using my gestures on my right now. I'm using my Magic trackpad, but that's how I'm sliding over. And we should be able to not only just click to select this thing, but because you see how the cursor is changing to a edit text cursor, we just click right in there and boom, we're in it to edit. So we can Command A to select all services. Cool. Now let's click out of it so we have the page selected, which means we can get into our styles. Let's click the faders here, and we will make this Something a little more sane. That's still kind of big. That'll work for now. I don't want to nitpick too much because we're going to destroy this thing anyways. It's kind of an abomination. I want to address the padding and stuff on here, but I'm not going to because that's going to be a good example for variables, which I think we're going to dive deeper into in the next video. We're going to touch into them a little bit here to help us with our prototypes. But yeah, for right now, I'm just going to leave that annoying alignment as it is. Let's handle the state of our navigation. And initially, I was thinking I'd like to utilize variables to determine if it's selected. So one way we could do this, and this may not be the most efficient way, but right now, with me just kind of winging this, I'm having a mental block, and this is the example I want to give. So let's click on variables. That opens up the variables dialog. We're going to add the variables here. And what I'm going to do is, it's not necessarily bad practice, but in the future, in a more in-depth design, and the actual app we work on, we'll organize our variables a little differently. We'll use multiple collections and things, and I will show name spacing in the next one. But for now, we're gonna just throw them all right here. So one way we could do this is we could create a variable, a Boolean variable for each of the items. Or actually, let's look at it as each page. So let's click on create variable, and we'll do Boolean, and let's think of a good way to word this. Let's do page dash home is opened. This is a little verbose, and again, I word this differently, but I'm kind of trying to be verbose so that you understand what we're doing here. Actually, we can make this a little easier, and makes it actually line it up with our button property or states. So we could do page home active, and we'll set that to false for now. Let's go ahead. If we select this, not the text, but the variable itself, right click, we could do duplicate, and let's do a little cleanup here. This may or may not be the more efficient way to do it, but page, was the second one, about us, active, and we could select both of these now, right click, duplicate, page, services. Can't remember if I've got these backwards in the order of them, maybe. And this one will be contact. Get rid of the two. Let's move this dialog so I can see. Okay, about us is third. You should be able to click and drag to move it there. Not necessary, but not a terrible idea to have these in the order they show in the navigation. So what we should be able to do is, let's close this for now. Let's zoom in and double click on the home button. Yeah. Okay, actually, we're going to, I just remembered, if we click on this, we can't toggle that with a Boolean. There are other ways we could handle this, using prototype conditionals, I believe. But that's a little more convoluted than I wanted to do for this example. So forgive me for fumbling over that. Let's click out of everything and click on variables again. This is going to be annoying. I don't think we can change the type. We can't. So that's annoying. Let's actually, I'm going to take the time to teach you a little bit about namespacing, but mostly because I'm annoyed that I have to type all this out again. So let's go ahead and create a new variable, and this time we're going to do string and namespacing within a um, collection. Super easy. And if you're not familiar with it, like most programmers should know what namespacing is. But basically, we're for designers who don't think of it as just kind of categorizing or putting things into a bucket. And we could go about this many different ways. Right now, I'm just for simplicity, I'm going to namespace these variables as page. So page / this is how you indicate to Figma that this is going to name state or group these variables. Let's say home. Actually, let's do page - state home. When I hit enter, you'll see this added a new kind of group of page state, and home sits underneath it. Now we can duplicate this. Actually, let's change this to, I believe our states were default, active, and hover. Let's just set this to default for now. Okay, and duplicate. Change this to services. Duplicate. About us. Duplicate. And contact. Now each page state is set to default. Now these don't do anything at the moment. We're not utilizing them. And already in the back of my head, I'm realizing that this could also be a convoluted example and maybe not the right way to do it. But I really don't care because it's going to demonstrate features nonetheless. So let's close that. Let's double click on the home button. Now, if we go to apply variable, you'll see those listed here. Another nice feature about namespacing is if done right, it will help you find the groups of variables you might be looking for a lot quicker by having them grouped and nested under a namespacing. So we want the home state, which is default. One reason this could be not the greatest way to go about it is when we created those variants of the button, I mean, that is a string, the word default. If we wanted to, we decided for whatever reason, we want to change that to unselected. That makes this binding and method of using variables kind of fragile. I think we're pretty safe in this example. Default's a standard term. There wouldn't really necessarily need to be a reason to stray from that in this case, but just something to keep in mind. It's going to work for now. And let's go ahead and apply that same concept on each one of these buttons. So this one's going to be bound to services. Click on About Us and find that to that. Contact. Oops. And contact. All right, let's click off. Let's go back to the variables dialog. Let's go ahead and by default, check this to true. Oh, shoot. This is the old one. Let's actually go ahead and delete these. Let's, with the first one selected, hold down shift. You should get all 4 of them. Right click and delete variables. Now, be careful that deleting variables does not have a, are you sure you want to do this? So keep that in mind. That could potentially be pretty catastrophic. A much more in-depth design. But okay, let's change the default to active. And if all goes well, when I hit enter here or tab out of this, we should see the home go bold. Yeah, cool. So let's close out of this. And if we zoom out here, you should see that all of them are now set to home. It's not what we want. But that means we're on the right track. So let's go back to prototype view. Okay, so one way we can handle this is let's click on services here while we're in prototype mode, and you'll see our interaction here. Let's go ahead and click on that, and that should open up the dialog. You'll see we have the action navigate to. So that's what we want it to happen, but we want to do another thing. Let's hit the plus sign up here. This will add another action. And let's see. We want to set variable. Okay. So we're saying when this services button is clicked, we want to basically change the value of a variable. And let's click on services. And you see this too. And I haven't done this in a while, so I may fumble this. I think we can just put in the value, but there might be a little more codey feeling things to do. That felt dumb. Let's say active and close out of that. And let's test this. Again, I've been working in Figma quite a bit, but a lot of the prototyping I did was done like a year ago. So I'm a little hazy on how I set up the prototype. So bear with me. Let's give this a whirl though. Let's hit the play button, which move us over to that tab. Okay. We're on the home page. We click services. Cool. So that's selected, but you'll see got an issue here. Home is no longer, or is still active. And this is where I'm wondering if this may not be the most amazing way to do this, but it does show us a thing or two. So with services still selected, that button, click on the interaction. Let's go ahead and we can do another one. Plus set variable to, let's see. So yeah, so this is gonna get really gross really quick and annoying. I mean, like the setup time for this maybe is worth it if we knew that our navigation only was gonna have 4 buttons. Um, Probably still not worth it, but I'm gonna go through with it really quick just to demonstrate. But what we would want is for home to then be set to default. Enter. But that means we need to make sure that every one of these that isn't services is set to default because we won't know where they were when they clicked on it. But let's close out of this and just test that theory. Let's go ahead and hit the plus sign or the play button, sorry. Okay, we're on the home page, click on services. Okay, so that behaved as we wanted it to, but if we let's go down here, if we move the mouse or click somewhere, you'll see this restart, or you can hit the R. Let's restart. So we're on the home page. What if we go to About Us? Homepage is still selected. Although it's not active, we click on services. That still behaves the way we wanted it to. But if we're on services and we click on About Us, services stays selected. So this is meh. Let's go back to our design. I'm going to think about this for a second. Okay, I have an idea I want to try and run with. Probably still not the most ideal, but I think it will get us something we can work with and we can move on. And as we go throughout the series, I'll brainstorm, maybe look at some of my other work and remember how I did this more efficiently. Uh, but I'm not ashamed to show the process because that's the real world. You're learning as you go. Let's click on services again, and we'll click on the interaction. I'm going to go ahead and set up the changes that need to happen. So we need to set the home to, or we did the home. We want to do About Us needs to be default. And we'll do one more. We need to do variable contact to be default. Okay. So in theory, this should be at least the service button should function correctly. So let's hit the play button. So we're on the home page. We hit services. Services selected. Home is not. Click on About Us. Click on Services. Everything stays. Well, this kind of hard to tell if it's working, but like nothing else is selected when we hit Services. Yeah, that's a bad example. But what I want to do is it's annoying, but I want to go ahead and recreate these other three buttons. So click back to design view, click on services, and we should be able to duplicate this button. And in doing so, all of the interactions that we have set up should all be there, which means instead of having to go into each one of these buttons and do what we just did 3 more times, um, we should be able to go in and just adjust the changes to suit the needs. So we have services. Let's go ahead and hit Command D, and we'll go over here and change this to About Us. Let's About Us and delete that. And actually, let's just go ahead and delete the other ones while we're in here. Delete. Actually, there'll be two things we need to set up. We'll need to make sure we reattach the default state of them as well. But let's go ahead and hit Command D. And we'll click back on this first one, change that to home. And click on the About, Command D. Change this to Contact. Just so we make sure we're thorough before we change this binding here, we'll go back to the home and we'll just do it in order. So home. So let's go ahead and detach this. We'll hit this button again and we'll do home. Services should be services, so that's fine. Click on About Us, detach. Click on the attach button, About, contact, detach, reattach, contact. Okay. So now let's click on prototype mode again. Let's click on home, which you'll notice it's probably sending us to services. Yeah, so we don't want that. We can go over here and click on this, change, navigate to home. Okay. And then we'll just adjust, let me make this bigger. Okay. Okay, so About Us should be default, Contact Us should be default, Services should be default, and Homepage should be active. Click out of that, close. So in theory, if we hit the play button, this is so weird. If this is happening to you, just go ahead and hit restart. It might be better to just close that. I've had this happen sometimes. I don't know. I can't explain why. But okay, so we've restarted where your home is selected. Click on services. Nothing else is selected, just services. If we did this right, when we click on home, only home should be selected. Boo. That did not work. Interactions. Why did that not save? Home. Set to active. Set services to default. And close out of that. Play. Okay. Services selected. Home selected. Okay. I don't know why that failed the first time, but you are seeing that the desired effect is happening. But if I click out of here, it's going to do all the service behaviors because we haven't adjusted about us and contact yet. So let's pop back over here. We'll click on about us, and we want to make sure that the routing is appropriate. I showed you one way to change that. Another way is you can click on this arrow and drag it and say, I want to attach it to about us. So that's another way to do it. This does bring up our interaction, which gives us a chance to quickly go in and fix this to be active. And services default. Out, close. Okay, everything looks right. We'll click on about us again and just verify. Okay, that's what we wanted. So let's fingers crossed, we'll hit play. Okay, we're back at the home, hit services, hit about us. Beautiful. That is what we wanted. Okay, back to our design. We'll just do this one more time with contact. Things out of view. So let's do it this way. Click, navigate to contact, and services should be default, and contact should be active. Okay, and close. So play, home, services, about us, contact, boom. Cool. So we did it. Took us a minute to get there. And I know there's definitely better ways to do it, and we'll find those later. Not necessarily, not even just better ways, but there's probably multiple different ways we could have done this. And actually, if I would have thought of this before we even got started, we could have actually made this a better, like this could have been a better way to do it if from the get go we set up those interactions. Um, the interaction with the actions on the first one versus having to go back and, remove all the items, rebuild them, reset up the interaction, the navigate to all that, um, you know, learning process. But this does work, so we're going to roll with it. Okay, so I want to show you another thing you can do with prototypes. This might be the last thing I show before we move on to another video, so I can leave some more advanced things for later. But this is a good one to show. I want to show you that you can pop up an overlay. I'm trying to think of a good example of one. Let's make a chat overlay. So first, let's make another frame. So the F key, and we'll just, not think too hard about its shape. We'll determine the actual final shape and components in here. But let's say this is going to be like a help, like a chat pop up. So let's name it that. We'll say overlay. Okay, and actually, until we're done, I'm going to go ahead and actually place it in the home page. Right now, it's going to pop into the auto layout. But if we click this button here, this is, I swear this used to be, they used a different terminology for this before. But if you're a developer, this is going to pop it into, let's say, absolute positioning. But click on that, move it. So you saw it was above homepage, so that's why I was hiding that. I want to move it to where a chat would normally pop up. The bottom left, scooch it up. Okay. And maybe shrink this a little bit. Okay. So with this selected, let's turn this into an auto layout. So let's do Shift A. And I want to create a frame. So F key and just drag a small box. So that screwed up our our parent, but we'll deal with that in a second. I want to set the width to fill. And let's change the fill color plus, and we'll make it, we'll do the eyedropper. We'll take the light red we're using and maybe just make it a little different. I really hate how ugly this thing is, but okay, click out of that, click on our overlay, and let's drag this again. Again, that's just a quirk with the auto layout. I want to take out the padding, so let's do 0, tab, and 0. So there is no padding. And so this here, we'll think this is kind of like the little toolbar header like of the dialogue. So we'll want to click on that. And we're going to go generic for the moment to save time. And we're just going to hit the T key, click in there, and do capital X. Hit the escape will get you out of that. And let's change the font size. Oh, we're on H1 for some reason. That's something to maybe note. It's attaching the last text properties that we had to the new text item. So detach that. Change those to 12, 10. Okay. And we'll change the fill to white, maybe. Okay. And we want to apply auto layout to the header. And actually, we'll do that. Do Shift A. Then also come here and let's name this chat header. And we're going to change this to close. It's important to know that I feel like in some apps I've used, if I were to actually change this, it would change the value to close. But in Figma, this is literally just changing the name of the layer. So that will stay as an X. Now we've got all sorts of formatting things happening here because of the auto layouts being on. I think the entire overlay now is the size of this. So that's annoying. Make sure that this is selected, the whole overlay, and we're going to drag it down again. Hopefully Figma respects that moving forward. Let's double click on the chat header and let's add, well, let's remove, not remove, but let's do a 10 pixel padding on the right and left. And 10, probably too much. Oh, yeah, that's too much. Let's do like 4. Okay, that'll work for now. And then for the auto layout, let's do center right. So that's going to be our close button. Okay. Now let's double click on here. I'm going to try this and hopefully, actually, let's, so that is set to fixed height. Let's, hopefully if we double click on this header and we're going to do Command D to duplicate. Okay, good. Finally, it respected that. Let's go ahead and set the height of this to fill. And let's remove the X, just delete. And double click again. We'll call this chat box. Or I'm already regretting that I chose to do a chat window. This is a little more in depth than I wanted. We'll just make this chat box. Tab out of that. Let's go ahead and we'll remove the fill, add a stroke, And we'll just make it a like light gray. And so I want this to have some actual like spacing. Like this would be ideally where you're going to type in the text. But I want to have some padding on the right and left here. So we're going to go ahead and frame this. So with the chat box selected, Option Command G. So that will create a frame that this sits inside. We'll see that is inside there. Let's call this chat body. And let's, I'm nervous that if I hit auto layout, this is gonna do something screwy to our overlay, but we'll go ahead and do it and fix it. So Shift A. Oh, didn't. Okay, cool. So our chat body now houses our chat box, which means now we can add some padding. Let's do 10 and 10. I think it ended up making our chat box like a fixed width. So let's double click in there and fix that. Yeah, it did. Well, let's do fill. Okay. And the height is now fixed again. So fill. Oh, it looks like it did mess with the size of our overlay. So let's click on the overlay. Oh, no, it didn't. Oh, our chat body is not fill. Fill. Okay. Again, I'm already irritated about how long this is taking. Let's click out of this and look here. Okay. Just so that it looks like something real, let's do a little placeholder text in here. So with the chat box selected, the T key, click type your message here. We'll make this not bold, regular, and we will make it lighter gray. Let's go ahead and we will add one more element to this. Let's take advantage of our button component, which I think it's going to be kind of big, but I don't care for this example. So let's click on assets and let's click and drag a button in here. It's going to be easier to throw it above here, even though we're going to move it. But we can tell that we're seeing an indicator that it's going in the spot where we want it. Or not in the order that we want it, but in the correct place within the layers. Yes. So we want it to be on the same level as, no, actually, no, we probably want it in the chat body. So let's go ahead and drag this into chat body. Okay. And we'll hit Command right bracket to move it down. All right. And let's take the icon off. Let's make the style outline. God, this is ugly. And let's click on the chat overlay again, and let's position things to the right bottom. Sorry, right. Oh, that should have done something. What do we have going on here? Oh, okay. Actually, we want to do that with the chat body, not the whole overlay. So, right, okay. Double click back on the button. Change the label to send message. Again, this is horrendous. I'm a little embarrassed. But okay, one more thing, just because it's driving me nuts. Let's add some more text to this title bar. That's the word I wanted. Let's change that name to title bar. And go ahead and click on the close layer, Command D. And double click on there. We'll change the text to new chat. And we can click on the title bar layer again. And for our auto layout, if you remember from the first video, we can distribute this equally by double clicking on the current setting. There. So that works there. We'll just leave it like that. I'm going to nitpick too much. Okay. Let's make sure the entire overlay is selected. And we're going to now drag it back out of the frame, the homepage frame. I want it on its own. It's its own item. Just set it down here. Okay. Now we need some sort of trigger for this. We could add it up here, or we could add it to the footer. Actually, all these frames down here that are hidden. Oh, I forgot we still had all those boxes in here. Let's not rabbit hole too hard, but let's click on the content area and let's shift click and get all of these frames and hit delete. Oh man, this is going to be across the board on every page. So let's get delete. And click on that over here on the footer. Delete. Actually, let's not delete that. We're going to make a footer utility component because that's irritating. So let's, with the footer selected, Command Option K. And we will go ahead and build this out now while it's in here so we can have this as a reference, and then we'll move it into the utility frame. But we're going to add, we'll just do a button. I'd love to do something a little more creative, but I'm already spending more time on this than I want to. So drag a button in here. And don't show the icon. Button label chat. Okay. So select this footer element. We'll go back to the file panel so we can see our layers. So with that created, let's go ahead and do what we did before with the main navigation. And let's Command D to not necessarily duplicate. It will create an instance. So duplicate, Command D. Go ahead and select the main component and drag that up into utilities. Again, you don't have to. You could have left it there, but then you need to always remember that that's where you edit your main component. So this, in my opinion, is a better way to do it. Let's go ahead and select this instance of footer, copy it, click on the website services, the whole frame, and just go ahead and hit paste, which will put it at the bottom. Click on the old one, delete. And click on website about us, paste. Click on the old one, delete, and contact. Paste. Click, delete. All right, so we have a chat button on every one of our pages. Now I want to create an interaction for that. So click back on prototype mode. Let's go into our chat. And we're going to create an interaction. We're going to do the trigger is going to be on click. And for the action, we're going to not navigate to, we're going to open overlay. And we click in here. Basically, this is just going to list out every um, frame that is in the like the root of the page that is not the current frame you're in. So we want overlay chat. This is why naming things is kind of helpful, like the way I did. Okay, now we have some settings here. We want to overlay it. The position, um, most times an overlay like this is going to end up being like the bottom right. So if we click on this, do bottom right. You have other options, obviously these presets, but you can also manually do it. This is not the best example for a manual, so I'm not going to do that. These settings are great. Close when clicking outside. We'll demonstrate that in a second. Animation instant, we'll keep that the same. We'll keep all this the same and just go ahead and test it out. And then we'll go in and change some of these settings so you can see how they work. Okay, so click out of here. We have that. Let's hit play. And there we go. So sometimes it takes a while for it to refresh. If all else fails, click and hit the restart. But okay, so we have this chat button. Click it. Boom. There's our overlay. You'll see we're on the home page and it popped up. We stayed in the home page. We didn't have to navigate anywhere else. But now we're in a little bit of a bind because we can't get rid of this thing now. We can click on services. No, we can't. It kind of hijacks all the interactions. So let's go back to click on that, double click on chat, open up the dialog. Okay. So the first thing we would probably want to do, at least for this, is well, you may not want to actually for this. It depends on how your application works. Um, let's say Facebook, for instance, if you had an active chat open, I don't believe that. I believe you can navigate around Facebook and whatever chat you had opened is going to stay open. So, but I do want to demonstrate how this works. So, click on this, close this, hit the play button. Oh, that's so weird. Click restart. That might be a bug in the latest release. I have never witnessed it be that flaky, but we restarted it at chat. If I click inside here, nothing happens. But if I click outside, it closes it, which then allows us to go to services. Chat. You'll see we stayed on the service. So it allows you to open an overlay in whatever active frame you're in. But now we need to wire up some more things here. So we click out of that. Still works. Chat out. Okay. Back to the design and click on the interactions again. So there's not much more we can do here. We could do the background. This is helpful sometimes with like if you're gonna have a modal that pops up. This allows you to do like a complete overlay to hide out the background, or just like a kind of muted semi-transparent layer to kind of just indicate that everything else is disabled. Then there's also the animate. I feel like we could do a move in. And this might look cool if we want to say move in from the bottom. And I don't know, let's click out of that and give that a shot. Okay. Chat. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm not sure how it's going to exit. Oh, cool. So that kind of works. We'll go ahead and leave that. Now what we need to do is come down to the actual overlay, and we need to wire up this close button. So let's click on that X. Again, I need to zoom in a little. There we go. Okay, add interaction, on click, action, close overlay. So what this will do, it's going to close if an overlay is open, it will close it. And hopefully, I think it's bound to this overlay, and I don't think you can have multiple overlays open anyway. But so, close overlay. We will go ahead and not do anything with send message yet. We'll save that for another day. Actually, we won't. We'll do something cooler later. But at least at the very least now we have the ability to properly open and close our chat. Let's just make sure, hit restart, chat, close, chat, click out of it, close. Beautiful. I don't think I'm going to do any more interactions in this video. I think we're going to wrap it up here soon. But let's go ahead and look at some of the different things you can do within a prototype. Click here. Let's click on the faders here to see some options here. So we have some scaling options. Let's try this fit. Didn't actually do anything. Okay. Fill screen. Okay, so that's a way to kind of blow everything up. And since everything in here is a vector item, it should scale nice and clean. Let's see advanced. Okay, so I didn't actually know this was a possible, but you can disable that feature where if you click off of things, it'll make those like blue highlights. I don't have any need to do that right now, so we won't do that. Let's click out of this. I want to demonstrate the commenting. So if we come up here and click this comment button, or if we just hit the C key, we're now in comment mode. I love this. You don't always get a client or a stakeholder that is comfortable enough getting around in here to make this as great as it is, but sometimes you do, and when you do, it is so beautiful. It allows you to get feedback in a much quicker way, in a way that is so helpful. So, like, let's say I send this off to you. Let's say I'm a junior designer and I made this super cool web page, and I want to send it off to the lead designer. Hopefully, they're going to love everything about it. But because I'm not a junior, I know this is horrendous. So let's pretend I am now the lead designer, and I come in here and I'm like, okay, I don't like this margin here or this padding. I can leave a comment right in the spot that is relevant to what I want to address. I can say, fix this padding. So you'll see this comment here, and obviously, if I'm talking to myself because I'm the only one in this file, but if I was, Bob lead designer, it would say Bob, here. We can. One of the things I noticed while we were clicking around is there's a slight reflowing. The fact that we are bolding the text of the buttons is changing the size of a button when they're active, and that's not great practice. So I'm going to click on here. Okay. And maybe I've just got some enhancements. Okay. So that's enough to get this junior developer to work on some things. So click out of comment mode for prototyping. That will hide all the comments. And we will do something with those comments here in a second. But let's go ahead and click on this open sidebar while we're here. If we had more flows, they would show up here. And that allows you to switch to a different flow, which will make more sense when we have a reason to make more flows. But for now, we just have website. So clicking on that, probably reset everything. Let's try that out. Services, website. Yeah, it's another way to reset if you wanted to. And close that. But okay, let's go back to our design to demonstrate how cool that comment feature is. Click back into design view. Let's zoom out. And you'll see that all of the comments that were made And again, because I have the interface zoomed in so ridiculous, that's why these look so big. But so you can see these comments here. I can choose to defend my beautiful chat button and say, I don't think we should do that. And we can have a dialogue there back and forth. Um, and when, depending on your workflow with leadership, maybe you can resolve this, but, or maybe the lead designer needs to come in and resolve it, which I think they can do in the prototype. Go back to chat mode. This. Yeah. So the actual commenter could actually resolve it. That might be a better, you know, make sure the lead designer actually signs off on it. Um, but again, this super helpful because you know, I don't think when I early in my career, both as a designer and then even when I pivoted into uh, development, um, you know, the more feedback I got, the more work I had to do, and it was frustrating to have your work criticized, maybe whatever. But as you mature in your field, you realize that while criticism never feel great, you may never get over that, but you will realize that it is a reality, and getting that feedback sooner than later allows you to know, like, not go too far down a path where you have to fix things in a billion different places. Um, but then on that note, because you're experienced, you might also realize that maybe you're not going to get feedback right away. There's just no possible way. Or you just know that that stakeholder or client is not too comfortable with this flow of, giving constant feedback. So instead, you make sure you do things like this, utility component with the foresight that there might be a good chance that the client or stakeholder is going to come back to me and say, I would like these buttons to look a little different or something, blah, blah, blah. And you had the foresight to go ahead and create a utility component so that when that time comes, um, the work you have to do is minimal. You only have to change it here and it will apply across the board. It's okay. I'm going to wrap this up for prototypes. So much more you can do with prototypes, but we're going to save that for later. And the next video, we will dive into variables. So, see ya.